Welcome to episode 34 of our board game podcast, a master's degree in rolling terribly. And we are still smashing through our Frosthaven campaign with our recaps, scenario discussions, and topics centered around the game. I am your host, Eddie, and joining me as my co-host, a man whose rating tanked a bit last week after the chocolate fridge revelations. But we must let bygones be bygones, and I know he'll do the right thing and store cocoa-flavored consumables in the pantry like a normal person. Gaz. Say hi, Gaz.
Hi. And thank you for not making a big deal about it.
It was very difficult, and I will see what happens at the end of the episode. If we have enough time, I will unload. Sorry.
Well, this is what happens when you don't, and you ask a question and then say, I don't want to go into it though, but I'm just going to let you give an answer and then not explain anything. So
We didn't
classic.
want a rabbit hole situation, but ketchupgate has actually taken over our socials and our email and our real life, because I run into situations where I'm bringing it up with my patients when I'm treating them and my coworkers, and I believe you are running into a similar situation.
Yeah, I've been asking people and confirming. Actually, had Matt who wrote into us early on, and someone I know in real life who basically just messaged and said, 100% source goes in the cupboard. Your listeners are crazy. So it's look, it's pretty split. It's way more split than I think it sounded like at the very start. And one thing that I think is hilarious through all of this is that our patient zero of sauce must go in the fridge, Mark, who basically brought this whole thing up, right? We discovered that actually keeps his sauce in the cupboard because he's forced to, because that's like his wife's preference. He said, I put it in the fridge, but then it ends up back in the cupboard. So I feel like when the poster child for sauce needs to go in the fridge can't even manage to keep it in the fridge. I mean, what hope is there for anyone else?
It says a lot for who runs the house. It really, if you differ to your partner, because I'm the opposite of Mark in that I would like to put it in the pantry, but it lives in the fridge. And it just kind of shows who has the power. And he does not.
No.
And you're in a situation where you both agree. So you get to keep it where it belongs.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
pantry.
Where it belongs in the cupboard. Yep. That's sauce. It's not going to go off. Like, what does it need to go in the fridge for?
No, and Gaz also likes to refill the same container back from the 80s, from what he told me earlier. Although he claims he does wash it out.
Yeah, and I would not be alone in this. Buy one squeezable sauce bottle, buy the big sauces and a refill. Right? Guarantee I'm not.
Is the label all messed up and
Yeah,
falling
it's
off?
yeah. You can tell what sauce it is, but that's only because it's red.
All right, on today's episode, we are going to cover what's coming up over the next couple of weeks. We're going to we'll talk about our second attempt at scenario 45.
And third.
Oh, you ruined that. I was just say we're going to talk about our third attempt at scenario 45.
This is the problem. If you're not gonna give me the show notes, I'm just gonna have to chuck my jokes in there, and if it ruins your joke, well, bad luck.
No, that's fine. I've come up with a new game mode, all right, which I need to discuss with Isaac to basically take with a new direction of the game that I really need him to think about and release. It would make me very happy. It would probably be a commercial bomb because it's coming from my brain, but I will talk a little bit about that later.
Has it got anything to do with tracking DPS and or heals?
Oh, well, that's a part of it, yes, but
Yeah,
it's not the main
that's
thing.
it,
It's not the
that's it.
main thing it's centered around, and I guarantee more people want this. And I have a hot moment with Gaz. Hot topic moment with Gaz. All right. Iron and Wine has messaged me recently. He actually messaged me today, and he gave me a website. There was an old website called Gloomhaven
I don't think this is appropriate for the website, Daddy.
Which part?
Well, sharing the websites that you and I and Wine are getting into. Like,
Gloomhaven-storyline.com. That it is a campaign. It's a Gloomhaven almost companion app that looks after your campaign for you. And I had a look into it because they just started. They opened up Frosthaven as an option now, so you can actually track your campaign through there. I only looked at this today. I didn't even know it existed. And it's actually really cool. The idea is that it tracks your whole campaign from morale, items you've unlocked, resources you've got, how much prosperity you have, which buildings you've unlocked, what tier, etc. But also it tracks via a very clear and accurate flowchart what scenarios you've done, what choices you picked, which then looked at whichever ones, so that you can track pretty much your whole campaign through it. And I was just having a look into it, and it's a fair bit of data that I need to go back and put into it to make work. But I'm curious about being able to do that because I then get to see a better snapshot, and we can all use it in our Discord. Now, when I say
No,
our Discord, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think you're going about this all wrong. We've got to buy a new copy of Frosthaven and start again, right?
There's a few reasons as to why that's a thing, right? If the last 6 months have taught us.
Yeah, because we can restart the podcast, but start off as just like kind of having some kind of idea what we're doing rather than no kind of idea. So
With good audio as well.
better.
Yeah, better audio. But no, this looks really cool, and they do have a paid option, which allows everyone, you can run it on multiple devices, and it syncs it up, so everyone can actually use it on their own devices, and it's a way to support the developers for putting it through. But there's also a free option where you just run it on one device, and you can just track the whole thing through that same device, which is fairly cool. So I'm looking to probably implement that at some stage, just to see whether or not it's a cleaner way of tracking everything. Because I do find sometimes when it comes to looking at what scenarios we have available, we have those giant flowchart boards, and it's kind of like, no, not that one, no, not that one. And then, the other way is look at the map and look at all the stickers and work out which ones,
I've
you know,
never looked at the map.
no, I know you haven't. And that's why you don't know where we're going half the time.
Hey, well, hang on. I'm the one that does the flowchart, so I'm pretty much telling us where we can go. So I know where we're going. I just don't know it in the map because you've put the map over the other side of the room on a table. So it's not
It doesn't
actually
fit
part
on
of the
our
game.
table.
Huh?
It doesn't fit on our table.
Yeah, well, that's it. And it
It
never
needs
has
its
the
own.
stickers on it either. There's just a big pile of stickers on the table. So,
So what actually happens is at the end of a scenario, when we hit the outpost phase or when we unlock another scenario, Gaz will peel the thing off the flowchart. He'll hand it to me. I put it in a pile. Eventually, that pile makes its way. When it's about 6 or 7 stickers, I eventually, during the week, at some stage, I'm like, oh yeah, I better update the map. I go to my area of the table, grab all of the stickers that are in a pile, head towards the map, and then try to work out where they all go. And then also while I'm at it, I'm like, well, I may as well update the buildings as well, because it's not like we look at the Frosthaven map, which, mind you, I'm sure is a fantastic way of seeing the growth of Frosthaven. But at most of our buildings were level 1 last week, and I had to go back and work out which level was what. But it wasn't like, oh wow, one of our buildings, the craftsman or something, is like level 5 or 6 or something like that. I had to go back and go, here's the level 2 one, and then the 3 one, and I'm making a sticker sandwich on the craftsman because I can't just go straight from 1 to 5. What the hell's that?
no, you can't just do that, right?
No.
So, like, a little thought that I just had about the Frosthaven map, and this isn't any shade on it, and I haven't mentioned this before, but I think it looks really cool and it's a great idea. The problem I have with the map is that all of the things you put on there don't stand out enough to make it look like those are the kind of locations that are like important. So like you were talking about, like I mean, looking at Frosthaven, you can see the buildings, but when you look at the map in general, because it blends in, right? Like when you put the stickers on
Mm,
the map, it
mm.
has to blend in and make it look like it's supposed to be there. But I think they've done too good a job of that in that it doesn't stand out. Like these are really critical locations. So
Yeah. Well, like as someone who doesn't really look at the map, you're not really enticed to go and look at it.
no, I don't look at the map and I have no reason to go look at the map because I don't look at the map.
Mm.
Yeah.
If it was done a little bit like a serial killer documentary investigator type with the little string and the little nails on a board, would that be better?
Yeah. Well, I think just and like I actually shouldn't be giving feedback on this because I don't look at it at all, right? So I'm like even for me unqualified to have an opinion on this. But if I'm gonna make something up, make them pop. Like make it so that the things look like really clear and kind of jump out. But I think like the map probably isn't really as important as it was in Gloomhaven, right? Because Gloomhaven, it was how you worked out where you could or couldn't go,
That's true.
right? So it was how you navigated, whereas that we
Mm.
mostly used the advent calendar scenario book thing to do that. And that's
Yeah,
evident by the fact that I never look at the map, but I can still work out where we can go. So
correct.
I feel like maybe the map is more of I don't know, aesthetic kind of way of tracking that. Like it would be cool to put on your wall and add the stickers as you go, and you can kind of see it forming. But because we don't have it there all the time, I think that's probably like something we're missing out on.
It's an interesting point. I've seen people frame them and put them on the walls and all
Mm,
that. And I tried that on an easel and it kept falling off. Our
mm.
map's a little bit short because I'm okay. So we have an
Broke
easel.
it.
Yeah,
Broke
look,
it.
I bought it from Amazon. It's an easel. It's one of those easels that's a little bit like a tripod, so you can actually extend the legs out. And then I sat the mat now in order to sit a board up there that folds over itself like 3 times. As 'cause it's got 6 folded areas. I needed some masking tape. I used like a duct tape or something on the back of it, and it didn't look very good. And while I was halfway through, I'm like, well, I'm too far gone now. I might as well keep going. And I started trying to make it as rigid as possible so it would sit up. And then every now and then we'd hear a noise coming from the game room, and it was the sound of the map hitting the ground. And when it hits the ground, it kind of bends a little bit, and the masking tape areas kind of like break a little bit. And I'm like, ooh, that's okay. It's okay. We'll just firm it up again and then put it back on the easel. We step back, we wait 5 seconds, it's all good, we walk off, and then rinse, repeat, right? So now I've decided to scrap that idea now that one of the boards is slightly bending and put it on the kitchen bench, which makes it easier to see. The problem is we can't see it. I see it once a week when I walk past it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Frosthaven. It's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. So I take back everything I said. The map's great and it all looks really good and probably it's really functional, but we just stuffed it up from the start and then Daddy broke it. So, uh,
I mean, look, you don't know because you don't check. Anyway, what's on the cards for amDirt over the next couple of weeks? So as we know, I'm going overseas as of next week, and we're gonna have our last play session. I'm not too sure which scenario we're gonna do. I've had a mixture of scenario 46 from one listener. Another listener has told me to go to 111. He said, and I was like questioning why, and it was like, lol, because it'll be funny. And I don't like the sound of that.
nah,
'Cause it just
100%. That's not, we do
sounds
not want to
terrible.
end a like 3 week hiatus on lol. It would be funny,
No.
right? It was bad enough, just plowing through this one that we've kept like,
Yeah.
failing.
Yeah. So that means we've got enough time for one more play, and then we're going to do another release. And then during that time, we're going to do our promised amDirt Raw extra long one, which sounds terrible. But it's
Yeah,
going to be on all
naming.
the
Yeah,
road
words are
events,
important.
road events, and outpost events that we want to catch up on and go back and actually reveal a lot of those and have a bit of a chat. And we feel that that's going to take up a lot of time.
Mm.
I'm also trying to organize some. I've got 2 different interviews coming up that I'm trying to organize time to do them properly, and time is working against me at the moment and against us in regards to just general routine and work and tired and all that crap. And then at some stage, Mark is going to Japan because he just loves doing whatever I do, and he also decided he's going to go there with my mum for a holiday.
And drift with your mum.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, Mark's going. I don't know how long did he say he was going for? Like 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, I don't know. But
Oh,
I mean,
okay,
this clearly was not advised when he was hired
correct.
as our fourth.
It was like a pre-game chat when he was
Yeah,
going into what we were doing, what we're up to.
yeah, like lol. And you thought this was the last time I was going away. It's like, excuse me.
So yes, we will have to look. The short term is going to be fine. Once I get more details on the Mark thing, look, we'll have to work something out.
Yep.
Whether or not we're going to play them again at 3, or whether or not we wait for him to come back. I'd ideally like to wait for him to come back, but yeah, it's just going to mean that we're not going to have the recaps the way we've been able to do them. And unfortunately, look, life gets in the way, and sometimes these things happen.
Yeah.
And I think we've actually had an incredibly good run up until this trip that I'm about to take.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, sometimes we all need to take a little break.
When's my break?
You don't get one.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes other people need to take a little break. That's what I'm hearing.
Wait, doing the podcast is your break?
Oh, okay. I'm making an effort to swear less.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was good. That was good,
Yeah,
actually. We
yeah.
haven't done that. Scenario 45. Living Glacier. Take 2. And take 3. So
I hate this one only because we had to do it 3 times.
So, what's really important, and we're not going to go through absolutely everything, we already did this last week, is that this particular one felt a lot better from the get-go. The ship that last time Phil and Mark dealt with, and you and I went down the corridor, we actually had Phil set up his, from a bird's turn, so turn one birds with his hot feet, landing 4 hazardous terrain tiles on the floor, cutting off the creatures that were starting on the boat for them Mark to deal with, was really good. And Mark did a phenomenal job along with Phil in making that room look amazingly piss easy. And then then Phil came up with us into the corridor to go down the water part, and then we got held up there a little bit, etc. But it was so much cleaner, so much easier, and I didn't crack the sads.
Yeah, that was one noticeable difference.
Which part?
That sad part.
Oh, okay.
The lack of. So no, the boat definitely went a lot smoother. Although I think they pretty much did the same as they did the first run. They just did it better. And yeah, you're right. Phil jumped in pretty quickly. I feel like the second room went pretty quick. Like compared to the first time we ran through it, where it was, I was held back from going in and trying to really like kind of tank and get the retaliate stuff going because the pigfish things kept like hitting for 5.
And it was like 5 with no movement, and you were going to land right next to them, which was just unnecessary damage to take.
Yeah, it's like if something's moving 2 or 3 and hitting for 5, you're like, well, someone's going to get hit, so I'll go get hit. But when it's like, I'm going to hit for 5 and not move, I'm like, well, I'm not next to you now. I feel like making myself next to you is a shit decision. So
the information's there.
Yeah.
You're the one deciding.
Yeah.
Do you want to take damage or do you want to not take damage?
Correct, because it just adds this extra element on my card where it says move 3, attack 4, take 5 damage, right? Like that's what the card says.
Potentially take 10 damage.
Like. Yeah, wow, that's it. And I'm like, well, I mean, is that optional? Maybe I just not do that part of the card. So
yeah. There. So we got up there with birds. We dealt with that second room as well. This is the crucial room, the big room. The big reveal with the ice pillar. I can't remember what we needed to get. It was called Ancient Ice. And we need to get this Ancient Ice.
So this Elgox and their obsession with ice.
Yeah. Leave us alone. You don't understand.
Yeah, I clearly don't. You keep trying to explain it and keep telling us why it's important. And we're just like, move on, mate, move on.
And it takes once. So we were all gathered outside the front, and then we played the game of who are we going in? Wait, no, I'm resting. No, wait, you're resting. Okay, well, I'll open the door. No, I don't want to open the door yet. Okay, well, I'll rest then. No, but we're ready to go. We do that every now and then. It was one of those nice turns where we actually had the luxury of setting up, which is very rare. And Mark made the decision to then head back towards the ship. So he was in the corridor with us, which changed from the third game.
I think what he said was, would anyone mind if I didn't go in there and went back to the ship? And I think the consensus very quickly was like, we'd actually prefer that.
That's a great idea.
It's always, does anyone mind if I like leave you guys and just go home? Because I'm not really digging this. And we're basically like, we didn't want to ask you to leave, but thanks for not making sure it wasn't awkward. Yeah.
Yes. Which is exactly what happened. Mark went back to the ship. Now, here's the beautiful part. And I use that word loosely. Whenever we go into a room, we've now adapted a thing where I open the door and birds open the door. And then everyone flies in and goes, flap, 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 and jumps to where they need to go. And we had the map open this time. We could actually see the last room because we'd already done this scenario and failed. So we just had everything set up. So it was just a cleaner way to go. And we opened the door. Phil and Gaz flew over all the obstacles to get to where we needed to get to. And I stayed near the entrance. Now, here's red flag number 1 for me. I don't really, and this is an interesting thing about the snowflake, I don't have a great way of dealing with lightning eels. I didn't realize this until this scenario finished, but essentially the lightning eels at the very beginning didn't die. And Phil set up hazardous terrain, which we do, to basically tunnel or funnel the rest of the mobs who can't reach them around the corner to me, take the long way around. Whilst you guys are wailing on the Ancient Ice to proc it, and Mark's making his way back onto the ship to start playing Minesweeper. And there was a moment where I basically had to set up Snowball, which is the bottom of the regen heal, which gives me +1, +2, +3, +4 on my next 5 attacks in order. And I set it up in such a way that I managed to get off White Wins. White Wins is my Snake 11 initiative card. And I lined it up. I was in such a spot that the very tip of my snake, or one of the corners, one of the edges, happened to hit the Ancient Ice. And it was on the last tick of Snowball, which was a +4. And Win was up. So the actual card is 3 damage, plus Win, which is 1, +4. Wait, well, it was 9. Where am I missing a thing? Maybe it's 4 damage. I can't remember. There was an extra damage in there somewhere. Because I proceed to hit this thing for 9 damage, and then I pull a ×2. And it... Oh, that's right. The item I have, the one that turns over. Yeah, it gave me the extra damage. And I hit this thing for 18 damage, which was probably the greatest moment in my entire existence. And it felt absolutely amazing. And it was enough to get this thing down to, along with the help from Gaz and Phil, that were all whirling this thing down. This is red flag number 2. Once this thing goes down, everything spawns. That's okay. I've got to move 8.
Just pause for a second.
Okay.
I think you're underplaying how big a moment that was. Like, you're talking through these things like, I moved, I opened a door, I had to move here, I used these cards, I crit for 18, then I had to move here and I tried to go here. Like, it was a really big moment because, like, this was a scenario that we had failed, which we don't fail that many, and we didn't have a chance to complete in the same night. And we also had the intention of trying to get through too, because we were kind of like, well, we started a little bit early and we're on track. So the fact that this thing was on about 10 life and you crit it for 18, right, was massive. There was a really like a big kind of feel good moment across the table. Like everyone was like, yes, like not only did all of your setup, like you couldn't have set it up any better, right? And with your snowball, you've got to be really exact to do that. Not only did that all come off, but it wasn't just hitting some dude who had 6 HP and hitting it for 18. You were hitting the objective and you just killed it, right? Like it was brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And the reason why it's important to build that all the way up is because then when we fall all the way down, right, it becomes way, way worse and the feel bad is heaps worse.
Which it really was. So Snowball is a lost card persistent. So going into this room, I think I had 7 cards. Snowball is a lost card persistent, which when the final tick happened, it goes into my lost pile. White Wins is my snake, and that's also a lost card, which gave me 5 cards left. And one of those cards was my move 8. And that's my ticket straight back to the boat. So I planned that, and it was great. Now, health wasn't looking too good. I had a battle goal at the time also. It was like finish the scenario with 3 or less health. So I was like, hey, this is all right. This is not too bad. I had 2 health on me. I think I had a ward or something, or I can't remember. And it was like move 8. And then the eels spawned. So at the very beginning of this room, eels spawn, as well as the 2 existing eels that we couldn't get rid of, and I didn't kill. And I got absolutely munched by the eels at this point, to the point where I had to discard 3 cards. It was 3 hits, and all 3 of them was 2 damage or more. And it was super sad because I got rid of 3 cards. But in my head, for some reason, I still had calculated that I could do this. I couldn't do this. But I didn't say anything because I didn't know until a round or 2 later when we were trying to get our way out of there. And it wasn't until I realized that, here's my move 8. I go to here, which is right near the boat. Right near the boat. Only to realize I couldn't play 2 cards for the following turn.
Yep.
And no one could pull me into the boat.
And for those who haven't done this scenario, don't remember from last week, if you exhaust, you have to exhaust on the boat. So it was fine that he didn't have many cards left because he doesn't matter as long as he can get on the boat. And he had a move 8 jump, which is really far, but just not far enough.
That's the other problem. Move 8 is also a lost card.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is fine if you're going to launch yourself onto the boat, right? But then we don't care. Because the other thing as well, and for those that have done the scenario know that when things spawn, a bunch of stuff spawns on the boat. So you kind of got to get back there and you can't just die. You got to get back there and kill things. But Mark, had just did guerrilla tactics, mines everywhere. Like they just didn't know what hit them. Like they were wrecked by the time we got back there. So we weren't that concerned with killing those. But it was at this point that Deddy said, I can't make it. And we just... It was
a horrible feeling.
Like, what do you mean? Like
we had lost. We 100%. It was that moment we realized we lost, and we knew we had to do it again. And either next week, or we go again. Luckily, we we flew through that scenario, so we had enough time to do it again.
Yeah.
It was such a buzzkill.
It was, and that's why it was such a buzzkill, because it was such a good moment when you did that crit, like you did so much damage, and it was just all perfectly lining up. And then so just to the flip side of that, to just get pummeled and be like, well, like we lose, like
It's
it's
a
just
high
we
and
lose.
low.
No way around this. This is just flat. We're done. It was just like, oh, like we got really lucky with that. So it was again another feel bad, and I was like, yeah, I feel like if we fail this again, we just don't come back and just don't worry about the Algox, right? Like, I'm sure they'll sort themselves out. Like,
Yeah.
they've lived this long. I'm sure they'll figure it out, and whatever.
Yeah, but we'll still be tapping on 45's door for the next century.
Yeah.
So we had to reset. We had to run it back, and this is the first time we've had to do a scenario for a third time. And it just, I can't emphasize how terrible this was, because it wasn't even like look out for the loss condition like we've had in the past of letting an NPC die, or an objective not like surviving or something like that. It's just because of that one round of RNG of those eels going before me and me getting my move 8 off. I lose enough cards to the point where I exhaust and I fly through the air and I just fall right before the boat. And it was just so rough. So knowing what we know now, we had to set it up and go again. And funnily enough, I don't know what happened, but I do recall that it went slightly differently this time. We sort of opened with the same opening, and Phil somehow got booked by one of the scouts, and Mark went really deep. He stayed on the boat. So it was looking shaky from the start until they kind of cleaned up, or Mark kind of cleaned up on the boat.
Well, because Phil had to discard a card in like turn 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I think like turn 1 he did his runny thing and got booked, and then turn 2 he moved, and then something just hit him. Like I think, yeah, because they did the jump, right? Because normally they just have to walk through the hazardous terrain and traps, but they were like, no, we're going to jump. So they jumped over it all and then just punched him, and he burned a card, and we're like, oh, this is not a great start.
Because one of the scouts ended up in the hallway with us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one that punched him.
What are you doing here?
It jumped over to him and looted, and then the next turn, it just... Because he went really late. He went like 80s or 90s or something like that, and this thing went at 60, and we're like, dude, like... but I mean, look at... it's... You kind of try and figure it out. It wasn't his fault. But, yeah, he had to burn a card on like turn 3, and we're like, oh, this is not a good start for what is likely our last run for the night. And we're already burning cards on turn 3, so...
So we get to go through the corridor thing was not an issue. We were really good at that by then. You got really good at going in there and doing your retaliate stuff, and with Phil in there with some hazardous terrain and me in there as well, it was actually quite fine. It was quite very standard. Then we got to the chat. Now Mark never left the boat. He stayed on the boat
this time he was like, guys, I'm not even coming with you.
Yeah, yeah. He actually spent the majority of the next however many rounds playing his own game. In fact, when his turn was happening, we just played the next person's turn at the same time. Yeah. Because there was no one on the boat, so he was just literally playing his own puzzle game.
Yep.
Which was really cute, and we'll get to what happened to us the end later. So we opened the door and we birds our way in. Oh, no, we didn't this time. We decided not to, which was really funny because Gaz was like, what? Are we doing this? Are we doing this? We made the call.
Oh, I ended up going myself.
I know. You didn't even birds in.
No.
You made the call. We made the call collectively. I said that because the eels are on the water, I can't push and pull them through hazardous terrain the way I can every other mob, because they don't obey the rules that other mobs do. Everything else is an obstacle to them. So I can't actually do much damage to them. And that was what I learned from the first time. It's like, guys, these eels at the front door, they stayed alive. They ended up booking me because we didn't deal with them, and I didn't know how to deal with them. And because I can't use birds to fly over things the way everyone else is, I'm stuck on the other side. Now, luckily, with that exact positioning in the corner, I could actually land a white wins on the obstacle. On the objective. So I wasn't too worried about that, but I did need help to clear the stuff. So we decided a new approach, and that was set up a bit of hazardous and deal with the mobs. We actually cleared a lot of them. We really made that a lot easier.
Yeah, and the thing that was weird though was because we went back and forward, right? It was like, all right, maybe we need to clear these because you're right. You by yourself can't do much against the eels. And then we're like, okay, well, we'll clear them and then we'll go. And then we realized that there's 4 water spaces, I think 5 water spaces, and 4 spawn. So even if we clear them, there's still going to be 4. So yeah. I think we kind of half committed to clearing them and then figured out that there was no point clearing them. But we'd already kind of committed, so we cleared everything else, which I
Mm,
think made it easier because when we actually had to get out, there was only the eels.
yeah.
Right. Well, around there anyway. So we didn't have a couple of pigs chomping at us or, old mate Railgun like just throwing spears and stuff. So it probably accidentally worked out better, even though we kind of the original plan of clearing them really was pointless because they just all respawn.
Old mate Railgun. Like, actually had his Railgun card go off a few times with no pigs on the board.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was actually funny because he was walking right up to you and shooting you at range 1, but adjacent to you. So he's shooting with disadvantage and shooting for +0.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, oh, that's cute. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. We actually did quite well in kind of limiting how much damage. And there was a turn there as well, I think, as we got into the room, which was a big one, that I think Phil changed what he did to do a range attack on something and kill it. It meant that he couldn't do what he wanted to do. But I think we just kind of started looking more at what's the best thing I can do based on the cards I've chosen here, rather than I want to do this really cool thing. Because I think we
Mm,
we're all just sick of doing that scenario. And so that was a really big play because it killed that, and I think it stopped me getting immobilized. And there was a whole snowball of effects we looked at afterwards. I'm like, wow, it's really lucky you did that.
mm,
That kind of played it out. And you know what? Like, you can bad RNG comes into it because there's RNG all the time. But I think they're those decisions that when you see, have hindsight, but for a good decision, and you realize how badly it could have gone. Like, they're the really interesting ones. Because like hindsight's always great because you go, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. It's
mm.
a really good feeling when you use hindsight to go, oh, I'm really glad we made this decision because we would have got absolutely wrecked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was, I think, a little bit more just caution and planning at that start until
In
I
that,
got sick of
yeah.
waiting for birds. So I was just like, fine, I'm just going to jump myself.
Yeah,
And I
apparently
just,
you've got your own built-in birds. It's cool. Like, I no longer need to worry so much about that. Because I had Phil with me, and he was waiting for birds. Birds ended up only being used for him. Mark was still playing Sudoku back at spawn. And then, yeah, it just got to Operation Kill the actual objective again, which we did the same thing. Now, I didn't crit this time, but still did a fair bit of damage to it. And then this was different. Because of my PTSD, I decided we got it down to like 2 damage or 2 health or whatever. And you were then clearing the room a little bit and saying, okay, Daddy, go. Because the minute we kill it, the eels will spawn. So you want to be in the hallway, which, I started to plan. I think I'm almost certain I played birds to then get into the hallway, and then Phil kind of met me at the entrance, and then you killed it to then spawn everything, and then it was kind of like a Indiana Jones Raiders kind of thing as we were heading towards the boat again.
yeah.
And I got my move off. I 8 off this time, which was awesome. It was at this moment, actually, that in the hallway, there were a whole bunch of eels, and things. I was running around on 13 health and a ward on me, and I was like, "Oh, I kind of need to take some damage." And I turned over to Mark, and now on the way back to the boat, I have a glimpse at it, and this boat has about 4 spaces that are free for us to stand on it because Mark has covered the whole ship in traps. He covered the whole thing. So while we were doing all of that, he was just on the boat having a field day. He was just building traps everywhere, this whole thing. And I was like, oh my God, make way. And then I turned to him and I say, hey, you know how you can ignore your trap damage? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, can I? And he shook his head like, nah. And I was like, amazing. So I was planning because I'm going to jump to my battle goal. My battle goal was to be the first to exhaust. And I made it down the hallway with all the eels snapping at my feet, and they all kept drawing miss. They just kept drawing their misses, and I was just like, I need less health because the traps aren't going to be enough, and I don't want to waste Mark's traps when there's a whole bunch of things spawning on there because he's going to need them. So I spent the last 2 turns of that game trying to work out how I can neck myself, but on the boat, and I couldn't.
And small spoiler for in a minute when we talk about Mark and his trap turn, but it would have been hilarious if you had booked his mastery because you wanted to get your battle goal by necking yourself on his traps. Like, that would have been just, I don't know, this next level play of
Yes.
like sabotaging each other.
Yes, and yeah, well, it's not the first time that people's battle goals and masteries and all that have been
Best
sabotaged before.
sabotage, yeah,
So
that's it. Karma's a bitch. So yeah, but then yeah, the rest of it was kind of pretty um pretty
It wasn't
elementary.
cliffhangery. It was
It
pretty. It was very clean.
I got a bit worried for Phil because he was low health and didn't seem to have any cards and was like, oh, I'm just gonna move 2 all my way back, and it's like, oh, through the water and the difficult terrain and the things hitting you.
Yeah.
So I was constantly at this fear of like, if those eels draw their ranged card, that's range 2, I'm pretty sure. That basically means like all of them can attack. So I kept trying to edge my way closer so that I was gonna take most of the attacks if they did that. But he had a plan, so he got on.
There is a lot of panic that was setting through us just due to the fact that we had failed this twice.
Yeah.
And even though this one looked clear cut like a victory, there was a slight bit of like relaxation that was happening. Like we were getting a little bit too content with the way it was working out that you started hitting panic buttons like guys,
Yeah.
stop messing around.
Yeah.
Get on the boat. If you're gonna die, die on the boat. And we weren't even close to dying. I was nowhere near close to dying. It was exactly what I wanted. So yeah, the rest of it was fairly clean, and Gaz got over his little panic attack, and we made it onto the boat. Now in this time, when everything spawned and Mark was on there, we cut back. It's like one of those movies where it's like meanwhile, and it goes back to the boat and everything spawns. Mark was like, "Hi everyone." The trap has this card that everything within range 3, I believe, is muddled, and he then can make them move 2 or something in a certain direction, which is really cool. And he's also got a mastery. When he read it out to us, it was like, how the hell are you going to do that? Something along the lines of make in one ability, activate 7 traps.
Yeah.
All right, or something like that. I don't have it word for word. And he had planned his mastery the whole time. He was setting it up whilst we were on the boat. It was actually pretty amazing because it kind of worked perfectly. It wasn't like he already had mobs there and he was trying to work the traps around between. He knew that they were spawning. He knew how many. It was perfect
Yeah.
to line that up. And he got it off. Like his first, I want to say his first scenario. It's his third scenario of the same scenario as Trap, getting his mastery on the first go. With a character like the Trap. That just sounds like out of this world.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he did an amazing job and he planned it to a T. So, and not only that, it was one of the few times that doing a mastery was actually directly in line with the objectives of us and the scenario, because not only did he get his mastery, but he also just like completely wrecked 3 of the 4 mobs that had spawned. So that was exactly what he needed to do. So it worked out really, really well. So
And it was terrifying
good job, Mark.
because the guy's got 7 health. And anything that doesn't attack 4, which these scouts do an attack 4 on 5, is a potential one-shot for him.
Yeah, everything's a one-shot for him.
So he's and then while that was happening, and then was like, cool, this thing hits you for 5, +1. He's like, ooh, all right, I just got a card for that. And I'm looking at him like, no, stop. Stop it. I need
No,
to
it was
exhaust
even
before
worse
you.
because I think he was on 5 health and he was getting hit for like 3s. And he's like, yeah, I'll discard for that. Yeah, I'll discard for that. And like from the start, I didn't care because he was on the boat, right? And we weren't going to fail. But I could see you were like, really? Why are you discarding on that one?
Why are you doing that? I can
like,
come heal you. Like, I got this. It's fine.
you can take a 3, like, and then maybe they draw a -1 or 2, and then you don't have to discard a card. Like, no, it's fine. I'll just burn my cards.
Like, so that combined with my questioning on how the traps work and if I take damage from them, everyone started to piece that together.
Yeah.
And yeah, 45 is in the books. After 3 goes, it's in the books. It's done.
So you want to raise the difficulty still?
I have a question. Is this now officially the hardest scenario that we have done?
I don't know. It's the one we have to attempt the most times. I don't know if that makes it hardest.
Does that correlate?
I don't think so. I think that I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I'd say 10 was 1 card flip away from us having to repeat, and that was tricky the whole way through.
Yeah.
Like that was hard. I felt that what's the first pillar one? With the bombs, the bombing run.
Yeah.
I feel like we were a couple of card flips on you away from having to repeat that one. And that one I don't think was hard, but that one was just tedious. But yeah. So there's been a couple that I think we probably got lucky on, and therefore they seemed easier, but we probably could have got stuck as well.
I think the creature type, the monster type, also played a bit of a role in that because with 10, the priests had their ridiculously fast single-digit initiative, disarm and immobilize, right? And that's what made that so difficult because it caught my drifter that many times. It was like infuriating. Whereas with this, the only one that I would say is probably the scary one would probably be the piranha pigs, especially with a herder that is in range to make them have an extra attack because they do hit pretty hard. But even then, it wasn't like scary. Like Abel herders have gone down on my tier list. I'm just saying it right now, and the piranha
Oh.
pigs have gone up a tier list.
Yeah, look, I think the piranha pigs are definitely the more dangerous in that combo. But in saying that, they did draw it. There is one card that the herders have, which is like the move 3, range 4, pull 2, immobilize.
Ah, yeah.
Like that's the
That would
did
have,
you want to go somewhere quickly? Well, you're not
yeah.
going anywhere at the moment, and that's like the similar to the priest, except it's just one card and only really in really specific circumstances. But I feel like that's the one that has the chance to, in this scenario especially, just to be
Oh
like,
yeah,
"Did you want to do this one again?" Wow, guess what?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. The fact that we didn't see that in an important kind of situation, I guess.
No, they did it on me, but it didn't matter because I was like, "That's fine. I want to be there anyway."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Okay. No, that's really cool. We already discussed whether or not this is an Ormi scenario. It is definitely not an Ormi scenario, especially when, like, that would add a timer to it because he moves 2 every round, 4 with birds. By the time we're in there and I'm making our way out, he would be just entering the room, the last room.
yeah.
That's if he survived. Then everything's spawning, and then he's just cooked. There's no way you can do that.
Yeah. I feel like you'd have to get a hurry on to try and spawn things so that he would go back, or leave something on the boat so he's kind of there fighting it. But yeah, that sounds like a pain in the ass.
Put him on a leash. All right, battle goals. So battle goals, we remind everyone, like we did last week, that we had reshuffled everything. So every battle goal is available in the draft, I guess, the battle goal draft. All those juicy 2 tickers, all those rest ones, and all of that. So, Phil, now I have the cards. I couldn't remember exactly who had what, so let's just see how many I got right. So Phil had Streamliner, and I think this was right. Have 5 or more total cards in your hand and discard pile at the end of the scenario. And that's where he was like discarding cards. I don't know. I don't understand that. He was towards the end. He was like,
Because
I
you
need to
misread
discard
it.
a card.
Read the card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he thought 5 or less.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So he made it harder. Like almost. Yeah, okay. Yeah. He succeeded. He succeeded with his battle goal. We had Mark who had bully, kill an enemy that has 2 or more negative conditions. It was one of those ones where he's like, I think I got that. Oh, I don't know. And I'm like, no. If you don't track that yourself, then those annoying ones you have to track.
I feel like this is the third one he said. I'm going to go back and watch the video, like, replay of this to see if I did it or not. It's like, just track your battle goal, mate. Like,
Just track it. Just track it. You've got wound traps, right? He's got wound traps and immobilized traps and stuff like that. Gaz, how did you go?
no.
Do you know what you had?
Yeah, like, kill an enemy by dealing 4 more damage than it has life or some bullshit like that.
You're a coral. How are you going to do that?
Yeah, well, that's it. So I think there's a couple of circumstances on one of the eels where I think if I'd drawn well, it would have been okay. Like, if I'd gotten a plus, I probably could have hit it for enough. But it relied too heavily on having 1 on 1 HP and then hitting it and drawing a positive, which they don't seem to exist in my deck. Even
Before
with
it hit you and died to
advantage, just means
retaliate.
that I do 0, like draw
Yeah.
0.
Before it hit you and died to retaliate.
That's the other problem. Yep.
And I had Wakeling become exhausted before any other character. So this was, back. We have access to all of the battle goals, and we got 1. We got 1 as a collective.
In saying that, though, I'm pretty sure in the first 2 attempts, I did mine. I think the first one was open to kill a monster and open a door the same turn. We failed.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I don't remember what, and that's a 2 ticker, and I don't remember what my one in the first run through was, but I'm pretty sure I did it. So, yeah, 2 out of 3, right? So I reckon we probably will start getting these done a bit more.
Yeah, well, it depends on whether or not we're doing LOL 111 or 46.
No.
They both sound messed up, by
Yeah,
the
we're
way.
not doing any recommendations.
What? No, you can't do that. It's
Well,
against
no,
what we
we
said.
will do them, but we've got a 3 week break. I don't want to end on like, oh, we just got booked on this scenario and it sucked and it was terrible because someone said, lol, do that one, right? Like, that's the worst way of recommending it. So, yeah, I definitely am keen to do it, but maybe we'll just do a simple one.
Okay. DPS meters. We finally get to do these again. So damage done. Mark did 29, which is a respectable amount of damage considering he never left the boat. And he's trapped to like, on average doing 1 or 2. He built up 1 to do 5, but he definitely made a minefield. Yes.
It's a
I don't know why
field
I
of
struggle with that.
mines,
Yes, not
not
mind.
mind.
No, mind. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
That's,
That's all right. So he finished on 29. Now Phil and I tied. Phil and I tied on 42 damage each, which was really cool. This was also the one where I didn't get the 18, which sucks. But no, go Team Hazard. That was a lot of fun. Gaz finished on 100. And I don't remember how much of that, if we got a retaliation breakdown, but it doesn't really matter because that's how you do your damage.
I don't
And a
think
lot
that
of it.
much. I know I popped my potion and did on 2 or 3 of them in that first room.
So how are you hitting
But
for 100?
I don't know. That's what when Phil said did for 100, I was just like, holy crap! Like, how'd that happen?
Oh,
I think someone mentioned this in the Discord ages ago, just as a side comment of because I said that I keep drawing really badly, and they're like, oh, you haven't got your perk right that like, gives me advantage. I think because there was so much water in this one, like I really see the power of
you
being able to
pulled
have
a
water
lot of
everywhere
advantage.
because
Yeah.
it just negates all the crap cards in my deck basically, and uh, yeah. So I think I might need to rejig my cards a little bit so that I can actually start generating some water, which is going to be a pain in the ass for everyone. But I know that there's a couple of options. Like there's an item that I'm thinking of buying, which lets me just place. It's only one use, but place a water tile. And there's some cards that let me like pick them up and move them. So it might just be sacrificing a little bit of like power to kind of give myself advantage most of the time.
Which is huge. You're pulling advantage on every hit, and you're hitting multiple times in any given turn. So
Yeah, I think that's the thing that makes a big difference. Yeah, I've got lots of hits that do 2 targets, or because I can play 3 cards, I'm hitting a couple of times. So it does add up really quickly.
yes, so that was damage done. Damage taken or tanking. We had. Oh, my Google Assistant just jumped up and tried to help. I took 5 damage. Oh yeah, I was running around on nearly full health. That's right. Yeah, okay, I'll take that. Mark took 11, which also seems a bit weird, but that's like a
Didn't
lot
he
of his health.
exhaust?
Like I think he negated 2. He mitigated a bunch by negating 3 cards. Phil took 22, and Gaz took 43. So going full DPS and full tank. Good work, Gaz. Mitigation. I actually mitigated, and because I didn't add my stats to Mark's graph when he sent it through, so I had another. I think it was. Wait, I've got it here.
Oh,
7
this is because you.
because of my ward tracking. I had
Oh
a lot of
God.
wards
See
up.
what I mean,
Okay, I had a
people?
lot of
Like,
wards up.
this is what I'm talking about. Like, there is so many layers to this DPS meter that it is it's the most competitive component of our Frosthaven campaign. And there's so many things that people do, right, to adjust this. And,
Are you
now
done?
now he's separately tracking his regen and his ward so that he can add it to his stats.
Because I need to have a big bar in something. So yes, 7 mitigation for me. Guys with 10 mitigation. Also, I have no shields. Okay, I have nothing that gives me shields. I will never get any mitigation. Wards count as mitigation. Snowflake unite. Phil had 8 mitigation, and Mark had 11. Now I think some of these are actually from card discarding. I think we're counting that as mitigation, so technically I can do that, but I didn't really get hit much to do that this time, unlike attempt number 2. And then finally healing, I had 9. Minus my regen, I didn't add that in there, so there you go. I didn't add my regen to that. I had 9, Gaz had 7, Phil had 9, and Mark had 2. That is DPS for scenario 45, the completion episode thing. Outpost phase, we didn't have a section event this time. We are getting very close to my next section event, which is very exciting because I'm looking forward to busting out the second part of my retirement. I have no idea how long it is between my second scenario and my third. I'm really hoping it's shorter, and the long one, Fellowship Extended Edition, is just the first bit.
Yeah.
We had an Outpost event. We'll go into that into Raw. And it was very funny. It's very comical, involving a character that I'm liking a lot.
Oh, that's a Zane one, right?
Whoa, can we say that? Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, well, his name's Zane. That's fine.
Yeah.
We used to talk about these things.
Yeah, no, but now I'm eager to get Raw.
No, I know. I'm just trying to remember what it was. It was Zane. Zane wanted to do some zany things, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's very, very accurate. Very zany. Leveling up, I leveled up to level 7, which is very cool. Phil definitely leveled up to 4, but he did that halfway through the second attempt.
Yeah.
Are you level 7 yet?
No.
And Mark, I believe
I'm still like 30 XP off or something.
Oh, well, there's that. I actually have a new snowflake card, which I've selected, which looks really cool. It looks like a giant dong, but it's bigger than Phil's dong, and it does a little bit of pushing on the sides because it's so big. And it has pierce. So take that, Phil.
Second most competitive thing in our group is apparently measuring dongs.
Dong AoE
Yeah.
abilities. And I don't even have to aim mine. It just goes where I want it. I don't have to be in a certain spot. And it doesn't leave hazards behind. So we did some crafting. I think Phil brewed a potion. Oh, yeah, he did actually. Yeah, that was a very, very nice potion that he did, which was kind of answering one of the original questions that we had around whether or not this potion existed. And it does, but it still seems relatively okay and not too crazy.
We'll talk about it in Raw, I reckon.
Yeah, I think good idea. And we've yet to upgrade a building. We will do that probably before our next session because we had just done 45 back to back, so it was getting quite late.
And we were just cooked. Yeah.
We were incredibly cooked. So I'm going to move on to the new game mode for Isaac Childress. I have this idea, Isaac. I hope you're listening. I want a Haven arena-style PvP mode added to the game. Whether it's a standalone and you can combine all the classes, and you literally have Gloomhaven / Frosthaven / Rosaline, whatever, in a PvP style environment. Thinking a little bit along the lines of like a Guards of Atlantis kind of situation where it's clean. It doesn't seem too far. You can scrap most of the abilities. You can have some core cards. The cards have to be tweaked. They have to be tweaked for PvP because a lot of the AoEs are going to be kind of weird and all that kind of stuff. You can probably play it in a tournament structure. You can play it as a one-shot. You can play it in the team environment, etc. I think it would work. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be fun. I mean, like, it's tricky when you say, okay, I want an arena game, but I want to scrap most of the cards and the abilities, and I want to make it like good and like these other games, because then it's like you just want a new game. Like you want an arena game themed in Frosthaven / Gloomhaven.
I like the card play. I want to keep the initiative kind of flow where it comes down to initiative weaving. I want the top and bottom, which if the cards are tweaked well enough, provided they stay thematically accurate to the class that owns them, there could be a lot of situations where, you still keep the stamina system where you have to get rid of cards and all of that because, exhausting is still a thing. But the top and bottom part of it, where you can actually switch it up and be like, well, now you're in a different position, so I'm actually going to use this as my top and this is my bottom, would be really cool. It's the AoEs that are potentially problematic, but you can still technically keep them because if you have an AoE that's in a weird shape and they move from one bit to another, I don't know how you would do the reveal of what you're playing.
Why are the AoEs problematic?
Oh, well, they might not be because obviously AoEs work really well with monsters because you're hitting multiple things, but in a one-on-one kind of situation, what does it matter? But if they move into an adjacent spot, which is still in the AoE, I mean, that could be where initiative placement is really important. You go early, you get the jump on someone, but you go later, you don't have to reveal your cards until it's your initiative, right? I think a world with this would be really cool. And you could have a whole bunch of modifiers. You know, you could have a whole bunch of stuff where you could do a small little gear thing where, you know, the gear thing's a little bit different. You can have a sword that adds one to your attack or adds poison or whatever. I don't know how the hell you would do the elements. You may have to scrap that all together. Or you may have to have like this PvE kind of RNG system or a card race a layout system where it tells you next round it's going to be fire, next round it's going to be grass, next round, or you have it predetermined as a way of, oh, I'm going to sneeze, of doing with the thing. I would deep throat the shit out of this game.
Yeah, look, it sounds like it could be a lot of fun, and I think like the cool element of the card play, like you said, and interacting, and like having a rest system so that you did have to kind of time when you were going to do that, when you weren't going to do that. I think there's some classes that potentially just don't really work properly because they're not that they're more support, but they're more control-y in a sense.
Yeah,
Because the really broken abilities would be things like disarm and immobilize.
definitely. And you'd be, yeah, you wouldn't keep those in. You'd
Yeah,
have to
well,
find another way. It's like the coral has the tide system, and there's a lot of shield and retaliate and all that. You'd probably scrap a fair bit of that because, you know, but you'd keep the tide concept
yeah.
and then do other things with it.
Yeah, so yeah, you probably have to go through and rework each class, and just coming up with a kind of an idea. Yeah, it sounds cool. Sounds like it'll be fun.
I can see a world where also because of Gloomhaven Digital, it would be a relatively easy digital implementation,
Yeah.
which adds a lot to its accessibility and its online presence. You could have quick, kind of fast arena style kind of combat games, but it's card driven, which is really cool. I think it'd be a very unique concept, and I think I'm gonna patent it. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't think you can patent someone else's IP.
What, Dedihaven?
Yeah,
Dedihaven Arena.
you've literally
2.0.
said the designer's name and creator's name and
Yeah, he's my
how you.
friend.
Okay.
I will design the class called the Daddy Gaz Killer, and I'll play test that, which is very cool. But no, I actually see a world if this. I like arena style games. I don't think I think back to Battle Royale. I think back to WoW Arena. I think all these arena style games. I don't see many out there. I think you've got small skirmish style games like your Warhammer Underworlds, and you've got Guards of Atlantis, which mimics a MOBA kind of thing. I think all these are brilliant. I love all these. I would just think there's another space for it, especially for a 1v1 kind of thing, but tactically card-based, but tactical with a board, right? And movement
Yeah.
and obstacles and all that kind of shit.
I think one of the things that makes, and I mean, we may as well go down this rabbit hole, right? Like one of the things that makes, is it Mythic Pantheon Battles? Am I getting that right? I always stuff the name
Mythic
up.
Battles
Yeah.
Pantheon, yep.
Yeah, that's it. So I almost got it right. One of the things that makes that fun is the card play, but because you've got multiple units.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that you might run into with a arena style game that's only one unit is how much customization or difference you have in every battle. Because I think that's the thing with Underworlds. Again, it's like a small squad, right? I think there was a 40k version of that as well. And, you can update it. You can add new things. You can add new classes, etc. But there, you have options for building rather than just being the one class. So I think it'd be interesting because you want to make sure that you playing it again is different again, right? And if I play Coral and you play the Drifter and we play 3 or 4 games, you don't want it just to be that, I know everything you're going to do, right? Like you just,
Weight.
well, yeah, but that's exactly it. Like you don't go, oh, well, I know what your first 3 or 4 turns are going to be, because you'd want it to become more of a rock, paper, scissors type thing. I feel like the parts of the game that would be fun is, especially if you're only dealing with one character and a couple of cards, is trying to read. So you'd maybe need some extra mechanic, like as you said, whether you have the elements or not, like you might need some kind of like weird momentum mechanic, right? That allows you to take advantage if you are correctly reading what the other person's doing, and that makes it more of a style. But now at that stage, you're going so far away from what Gloomhaven and Frosthaven is, then you're just making this great idea that we should patent it.
Well, I guess some of that choice comes from, in Gloomhaven or Frosthaven, when you level up, you have access to 2 cards, right? And I'm thinking of games like Guards of Atlantis, you're not going to use every single card because when you level up, you choose from one or two. The second one also is important because it becomes a stat. So you can change your build up as you go depending on the combination of cards you choose. You could do something similar to the leveling up system in this because it's just like when you level up, oh my god, which card do I take? That already gives you choice. Hell, you could take it a third direction and be like, you know what, you only hit level 5, but every level you go up, you get to pick 3 cards, and you can almost start like, I'm not going down all the ideas, but then you got like items as well, right? Like items that tweak things ever so slightly will give you enough choice to keep it fresh. I will try this card with this item kind of thing because it's going to increase the range by 1 or something
Yeah.
stupid like that. And the
I,
timing of when you use what.
I get what you mean, and having lots of choice is fine. It's just that when it becomes like a 1v1 you struggle with. Right? I feel like I don't know, but I don't imagine there's that many 1v1 skirmish games out there that have a lot of longevity.
Not yet.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying is because I feel like it's a really difficult thing to make interesting for a while. Like
Yeah.
it's to give it depth and replayability. You're reducing all of your variables down to 1 and 1, right? Whereas when you have the ability to build your team, even in Guards of Atlantis and stuff like that, it's not a 1v1. That's all that's on the
No.
map,
And,
right?
and Guards of Atlantis is not a 1v1 game, which is kind of where, yeah, you can minimize it to a 2v2. But this is why we have geniuses like Isaac there to design these games. And if we don't think that they can exist, he will find a way to make my dream come true.
Yeah, I'm not saying it can't exist. I just that yeah, I think it would be a lot of fun. There's a few design things that need to be fixed, and I'm sure there's people out there that have played games like this that are probably like, no, it works really well, and this is a game, and throw that at us because that'd be really interesting to know and explore. Because
Yeah.
I'm always keen to look and explore the the design side of things of like that, and what problems could you have, and how could you solve them, and how you go through all that.
Well, that's why I love talking to you about it, because you think of the things that I don't think about. And you put a lot of those kind of thoughts in my head and make me go, well, have you thought of this, you idiot? And I'm like, ah, yeah, that's really clever. So, let me dream and then you shatter them. It's completely fine.
That's it. That's what I'm all about. Ruining people's dreams. So, all right.
All right.
What
Hot
else you
topic
got?
moment with Gaz. If you were to start again knowing what you know so far, with only 2 classes available to you, Coral and Geminate, which character would you pick?
Oh,
Ooh.
I
I wasn't sure whether or not this will stump you or not.
yeah. Well, I mean, like the coral is definitely easier to play, 100%, and
Okay.
I think is more fun. It's okay. It's easier to find the fun, right? Like the coral is like, oh, look at how many cool things I can do, right? It's like
Gemini is the king of look at all these cool things I can do with all these restrictions.
yeah, that's the thing. It's like, oh, wait, hang on. I think the time is right. There's this one card that I've got that works really well that I think I can. So, yeah, it's a bit like that. Like the Geminate's a bit like one of those things where once upon a time, I went overseas and climbed up this really tall mountain, right? And I'm not making this up. I got tricked into doing it and was told that it was a short walk, right? Now I went up and it was. I know I'm unfit now. I was probably more fit then, but still not fit. I'm glad that I did that. And if I had got told what it was, I never would have gone into it. But it was really cool being up there, looking back, climbing back down. I was actually wrecked for 2 days, but it was fun. I feel like the Geminate's that same experience. Like going through that and figuring it all out and seeing it play and trying to work out where is the fun, where is the power, like how does this work was good. I probably wouldn't do it again though, because there are some points in that class that are just not that much fun. And there's some situations you can get into with scenarios where you're like, this is annoying. This is more annoying than it is challenging, right? Or
Yeah.
more annoying than it is fun. And if I figure this puzzle out, I'm just kind of like, oh, cool, I get to have a turn, you know?
Yeah, okay.
And
There's a level.
and
It sounds like there's a level of satisfaction there when the pieces come together and it clicks. It feels really good, and you're like, yes, I don't want to do that again.
yeah, exactly. It's yeah, exactly. Probably a better analogy is just like doing a 10,000 piece puzzle, right? Like you do it and you'd be like, yeah, cool. I don't want to take it apart and do it again. Now there are people that would because there's people that enjoy that. Like they enjoy that kind of process. So I'm sure there's people that have gone back to the Geminate and gone, I love it. I loved every minute of it. And yeah, like I just don't think I would unless it was really, really late in the campaign, and we've got enough prosperity to be starting around level 5. Right?
That's
Because
a
then
cool
you jump
point.
straight into, yeah, there's a couple of cards I could pick differently. And then I'd probably get to explore the like level 8, 9 cards. But then I probably would go back to it. But definitely if we were starting from scratch and I knew what I knew now from level 1, yeah, I'd take the coral.
Okay. So which like I guess this is answering this question already. Which has been more enjoyable?
I don't know. Probably they've both been enjoyable in their own way. Like Coral, I don't find is as much of a challenge, and the satisfaction is not as big for getting a good turn off.
Mm,
Like it's cool being able to figure out. You have 3 cards, so it's cool being able to figure out those things, and I think I'm getting better at it. Uh, so that's fun. But I feel like the Geminate had some really big. I really enjoyed having that extra challenge for a bit, right? That's the thing. I know this sounds really contradictory. I'm like, yeah, I loved having restrictions. It's like, yeah, they were fun for a bit, but there were moments where I'm like, this isn't fun, right?
mm,
And the other just other things like, oh, this is a scenario which I didn't know how long it was going to go for, and now I didn't get to burn half my deck, which means I got 0 XP.
mm.
Like that's again, that's like a not a fun experience because, and it's kind of like, well, I guess I could just burn all my cards every scenario and book myself, but then I'm kind of booking the group. So
Yes.
it becomes again a balance of like, well, you can just accidentally not have as much fun and you didn't really have anything to do with it. So
Mm. Yeah, no, that's some good points there. Which one so far has felt stronger at what points in the game? So obviously level 1 or level 2. Would you say that one of them is more stronger than the other? You're now at midpoint because you're level 6. Is the same one going to be stronger in your mind?
I think that the coral is probably feels a lot stronger because it doesn't rely on anybody. Whereas I reckon if I had the Geminate from 5 and you were on your Snowflake from 1, kind of like how we played that one scenario,
Oh
I th-
yeah.
yeah, with some synergy, like that felt like I got to 5 and got fire, and then got 6, and I think I got the card that let me turn an element into ice and something else, right?
Mm, mm.
And that one scenario we did, I felt such a big power boost by just giving myself the ability to kind of eat and generate those resources.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I think that
So it
uh,
sounds very dependent on partnership, really, and who else is in the game.
well, I mean, that's the problem with the Geminate from 1 to 4, really, is that any of your element generating cards, sorry, element eating cards, you are completely reliant on other people or other things to happen so you can make them. Like
Mm.
you got the ability to turn elements into other elements, but they have to exist in the first place. And outside of burning cards, you can't create them. So I feel like you could build a party not around the Geminate, but you could build a party with the Geminate in mind, and I reckon you could have a really good time with it. And probably from even from early on, the power would probably be pretty good. But just from pure, the coral doesn't really need anyone else to do anything. It just
Yeah. Okay.
does whatever it wants to do, and it just kind of keeps rolling on. And I feel like it's just getting more and more powerful, like most classes. But the bonuses that stack up just become way, way, way stronger. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
And finally, who would win in the 1v1 fight in the new arena game that's coming out with your Gemini and the Coral?
I'm gonna try and remember what the Geminate can do, but probably not it because once the Coral got next to it, none of the range 4 or 5 cards the Geminate have work. So, I mean, I feel like you could pick 14 melee cards. The Geminate could probably tear it up because like there were some cool cards in there, but having to get away, there's just no chance.
Well, I mean, the Coral's just going to walk up and then go, well, I have melee shield and retaliate up. And the Gemini's like, well, I'm just going to go that way and try and
Yep,
get back into 4-5 range. It's like a hunter from WoW with the death zone. Oh,
yep. Dead
yeah.
Zone, yep. That old school WoW players will remember that. So yeah, 100%. I just think that the Coral would just absolutely destroy them.
Oh, that's disappointing. All right,
Hmm.
go Coral. Finally, and this is probably the most important part of anything we've ever recorded ever. What happened last week when you mentioned that you put chocolate in the fridge?
So this is probably not going to help my case, right? And it's probably pretty controversial, but I'm not a massive fan of chocolate in general.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay,
That's actually
so
fair. I totally respect that. That's fine.
never really ate a lot of chocolate. I'm more savory, so I'll smash dip and cheese and that kind of stuff, right? So and crackers. So I don't eat a lot of chocolate, and I probably eat more chocolate and have in the last 10 years. More so being with my partner because she really likes chocolate, right? Which is
Mm,
fine. So there's just more chocolate around.
yeah.
And so I
Oh,
think
and when Phil brings the box of
oh yeah, here's
the
like a
favorite
kilo of chocolate. By the way, I'm just gonna put it there. I'm gonna eat
on the
one
desk,
and
and all of
just
us just gravitate towards it and just start picking at it without
yeah,
realizing
yeah.
it.
So and because they're little, you just go in and you get like three or four, and then they're a bite size, and then you realize you just ate four chocolates, and you're like, I didn't need to do that, but
Yeah, but they were room temperature chocolates, so
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's fine. So I think I started putting chocolate in the fridge mostly when I had kids because if they had a chocolate like like more like Kinder Surprises or things that would melt and go yuck, like or squish or stuff, I started putting in the fridge to keep them because I didn't know if they were going to have them then or. So it just kind of got into a habit where I was just like, well, I'll just chuck it in the fridge in case it melts.
yeah,
Uh,
okay.
so I don't think I wouldn't be an advocate to say chocolate has to go in the fridge, right? Like this
No,
is completely different to SourceGate. Like it makes sense why people would not keep chocolate in the fridge. Um, I do when I eat chocolate sometimes like it being a bit harder and colder, but that's mostly because the chocolate I like is stuff with stuff inside of it, like the mint gooey stuff or things like that. Like I don't just like a block of chocolate.
mm, okay.
So yeah, so that's probably where I land. I don't. I won't. Yeah, I'm not.
It sounds
It's
like
not a hill I'm
you're
going to die on, but
no, but it sounds like where you have landed on this is that it's not so much about your enjoyment of chocolate; it's to stop your kids from making chocolate mess.
well, yeah. I mean, like, if anyone has had a Kinder Surprise, and you probably haven't unless you have kids, because I don't think they existed when we were kids. But like that chocolate is really thin, so
It
it
melts the second you unwrap it, or
It
even
melts.
before you
It
unwrap
melts
it.
before you unwrap it. Like that's the thing. Is like if it gets warm, like if it's in a plastic bag and your car aircon's on 20 degrees, by the time you get home, it can be a crushed ball. So sometimes it was just easier keeping them there because you'd pull them out of the cupboard. And I mean, being in Australia, the temperature is either 45 or 12. If you randomly got the 45 one, then I pull it out of the cupboard and go, "Oh, here's your squished egg thing
Here's
in
your toy.
foil." Yeah, basically. You're like, and so it was just like, I'll just chuck them in the fridge. And so it kind of just went from there.
That's fair. Look, I did ask one of my clients, and she said to me, "Chocolate in our house always goes in the fridge. What are you talking about?" And I was like, "No, it doesn't. It goes in the pantry." She goes, "Ash, I'm from Queensland," and I've just gone,
Yeah.
"I hadn't thought of that."
Yeah. I mean,
And I was
Queensland's
just
like
like,
12 inches from the sun, right? So
"Yes,
everything needs to go in the fridge.
that's right." So
Yeah.
it really got me thinking about that. I was
Mm.
like, "Whoa, that's a good point. Like where you're located will probably impact where you store it."
Yeah. Yeah. So, because didn't we have someone who contacted us that mentioned the
Yeah,
chocolate thing?
yeah. Markieta said that when she went to she moved to New Zealand, and she was horrified that everyone in New Zealand, apparently every single person, like she knows this for a fact, every single person in New Zealand stores their chocolate in the fridge, and she was kind of horrified by that idea.
Yeah.
And then went to explain to me why exactly it doesn't belong in there, and went into real detail of how it melts on the mouth and the flavors and all that kind of stuff, which
Mm.
I totally agreed with her because she did say that she would unsubscribe from us on every platform if it turns out that we store it in the fridge. So I think I'm single-handedly saving us from losing her.
Yeah, and look, I'll be honest, and probably half for losing the subscriber, but also half because she put up some really good arguments around why. I will stop putting chocolate in the fridge. So you
Whoa.
know,
Wow, what a change.
there you go.
One person at a time. This is
Actually,
the
you
power
know
of
what? There's a
podcasting.
small other factor as well, is that my partner also doesn't like it in the fridge. So I've stopped putting the chocolate that I buy for her in the fridge. So basically, it's like there's no reason. I'll
Wow.
just admit that I just was doing the wrong thing, trying to help people out, and no one wanted it. So
I knew that when I wanted to do a board game podcast and then do Frosthaven, I knew I wanted to make a difference in the world. And it's really,
yeah.
really cool that 34 episodes in, we're starting to really see that change happen
Well,
person by person.
I think that's what it's so funny is that like I think in that email, that message that you got as well, that person mentions like source, going off maybe, but also like jam and things like that. And like when they mentioned like, oh yeah, but like yeah, it's weird. Like it's like if you would keep jam in the cupboard. I'm like, well, 100% you keep jam in the cupboard. Why would you put jam in the fridge? And it's so bizarre, like how like we were talking about this before we recorded. You have all these little idiosyncrasies of or things that you do that you just assume is the way people do things. Um,
These
and you
things
have
aren't taught in
yeah,
school. They're not taught on the news. There's no one. You literally grow up. It's either your parents or you just move out and you go, well, I've never seen a slice of bread in my life. Bread's going to go in the fridge.
no,
And only, no, it doesn't. I totally agree with you. We had this chat. Bread only goes in the fridge if you are going to have
if you're
toast for the
relegating it to
rest of that
toast,
loaf. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. And look, we can make a whole show on this. And it'll slowly morph into this. So,
Let us know. Let us know if you want us to do a bonus episode, which is food and where should it go. Right?
oh my
We
God.
will do that. We'll do a YouTube thing. We'll get opinions in there. Maybe get some special guests and get some for and against, and we can work out. You know, really nut out the big issues that are
Yeah.
plaguing humanity. Of like
Yeah.
where you should be putting your food.
Maybe what's it called? Helga's, and we'll get sponsored by bread companies and
Sauce
Vegemite.
companies.
Although Vegemite's not really a thing, is it, around the world? It's like they just see that
What?
as gross, right?
Yeah, I think Vegemite's that polarizing thing. It's like you're either Australian and love it or you're everywhere else and you hate it.
Well, for other Australians, Vegemite belongs in the pantry and it doesn't go in the fridge, even though it might say refrigerator after opening.
No,
Just like
nobody
everything
puts. No,
else.
I am gonna say nobody puts their Vegemite in the fridge. Like I'm just gonna, without not having any data on this, there's no way. It's made from salt. It's not
Yeah,
going off, right? Like it's like
it looks off already.
120% salt. Like,
It looks off already.
yeah,
Like you'll never know.
no, that's it. That's it. And if you're buying a jar of Vegemite and you're having it long enough to go off, then that's just un-Australian.
And it's
Like
also
you
adding
need
to
to
the
be eating
flavor.
it quicker than that.
Yeah, it's all about the spread. We'll have to go through a whole documentary on how to spread it too.
Yeah. So
All
I
right. Well,
apologize for anyone who stayed with us this long. We probably should have said about 5 minutes ago, feel free to skip forward 5 minutes to the wrapping up of the episode. So,
but yes, we will wrap it up there. Thank you very much for listening to episode. I have to scroll up. 34. 34 of our board game podcast. If you want to contact us, you've already heard all of the plugs. So the one plug I do want to say,
where's that British? Hang on. Where's that British plug guy?
we haven't sorted it out yet. We'll sort that out
Oh,
soon.
just
But I
can't get good
do
help
I,
these days.
I do encourage people, if you do get the opportunity, do head over to our YouTube, youtube.com/amDirt. Have a look. I'm putting a lot of videos up there. I wouldn't mind a little bit of feedback. I know some people have been commenting on some of the, because our podcast goes up there as well, the video format of our podcast, so that you can actually see us interacting and see the facial expressions when I say something stupid. But also, I've been putting up a new series, which is a Kickstarter series, which is me kind of going back on the history of the games that I collected over the years. It's Frosthaven stuff there, but there's also other stuff that I'm branching out in. Please check it out and give me some comments on how you think it's going. I'm trying to self-teach myself how to do pretty much everything since we started the podcast, and a lot of that feedback will be very valuable to me.
And I think as well, just for feedback in general, like if you're thinking about it or you don't like just throw us a message. It doesn't have to be detailed. It can just be some what you like or don't like. It's good for us to know, especially after this long, because we're kind of getting into habits. Like we're now kind of in our rhythm a little bit. So if there's something we do every week that really just annoys you that you don't think should be in there, I mean, let us know. We'll probably keep doing
Ketchupgate.
it knowing that it's going to annoy you and we'll call you out, but at least you get a shout out. But we may change it and stop doing it or alter it, if it makes sense. So again, we are really open to chatting with people, and I'm past my fear that when Deddy says, oh, we've got someone that wrote in, I'm like, oh, what rules do we stuff up this week? And maybe that's just because we stopped talking about all the rules that we do, so nobody knows. But yeah, I'm now embracing people going like, hey, cool, I've got something to say, and kind of chatting about that. So please reach out.
Yeah, and thank you all for sticking with us up until now, guys. And I'm really enjoying doing this, and we're planning on doing this for as long as the game allows us. But also at some stage, we're gonna have to work out where to go from there. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Gloomhaven version 2.
2.0 and the RPG.
Yep, that's it. Eternal.
So I have been your host, Eddie. Thank you again. I have been joined again by Gaz.
And remember, when it comes to doing scenario 49 3 times,
45.
45. You can clearly tell I don't read the show notes. It's all in the wrist.